let's continue in our series, shall we? Thanks, Cam. I'm excited. Let me pull up something that's going to help me. Oh dear, I don't have the app on my iPad anymore. There we go. Okay, we're only a couple of weeks left in this guy. A couple of weeks left in this series. I trust that it's been a blessing to you. It's been a blessing to me. And I know it's been a blessing to Cam as well. He's come and prepared in it as well. It's a series where, again, we set out with a real intentionality to name the people, name the way that we, I think the word probably is idolise. We idolise people. We lift them to a place where they shouldn't be. And we convince ourselves that the ministry that they've got, or something about their character or personality, or something about the way that they can lead, or whatever it is above a level that I can attain, and in some way special or unique, to the point where I need to lift them up and look at them and be like, wow, they're the answer, and here's lowly me who could never match up to that. And so we've started and we've worked through a number of people, just as we've wrestled with what does it mean to be ordinary in the kingdom. And as we've done that, we've encountered themes of repentance and grace in Peter's story. Brian, too, you shared about the persistent widow who was seeking justice. Just last week, Cam shared about Ruth and around character. And we looked at Daniel and Shadrach and Meshach and Abednego as well. And there was another one that we looked at. It was the forgotten ones, Andrew and Ananias. And in all of those, saw how God used someone really ordinary that did something quite extraordinary. And so we're going to come to a passage today that is one of these tricky passages because we just have to upfront a bunch of questions. In fact, there's two really important questions that we have to name and deal with before we can really actually get into anything of the passage. It's just one of those funny old things that we have to do. It occurs often when we read, you would read the story of Jonah, and some of you would wrestle with this question as we come to Jonah. We have it again when we turn to Job. It's another question we ask there. Most prominently, we ask this when we read Genesis 1 and 2, and the creation stories. And we read it here. We're going to be reading through Noah in a moment. And it's a question we ask there, and it's a very Western question. And the question is, but how much of this actually happened? How much of it actually happened, and how much actually happened like that? It's a question that we just can't seem to get away from at the moment. And I can tell you now, it is so far away from the author's hopes for the passage. As they come and read, as they wrote these stories of Job, Jonah, creation, Noah, and many, many others, their hope was never that you would sit there at the end and go, yeah, but how much of this is real? Their hope was to show you something about God in there. But in our culture, we value this thing that we call historical accuracy. And it's really important to us as we tell events and as we read about events, the things that we read about them are really true and accurate, to the point where if the numbers are inaccurate, then the story can't be true. And that's something that is just more and more on the rise. Unfortunately, that was just not a value of the culture that was writing and reading this. And that just proves to be a huge stumbling block to reading and understanding this book and so many of the stories in it. We want to know, are these the exact words that they said? Is this the exact way it happened? Is this the exact day that it started on, the exact place where it is in? And the narrative, the Bible is much more interested in a narrative that goes alongside it, based in truth. Don't hear anything other than it's based in truth. But the narrative and the way that they're trying to work through this, we call it theological history. Because for the authors of the Bible, the fine details of the story were not as important as what the story was trying to do. And what they're trying to do, these stories, and we've seen this as we look through Luke and the gospel authors particularly, they will rearrange elements of the story, and they will rearrange the chronological order is not important to the writers of the Bible, because what they will do is trying to arrange things to help you see something that's much more important and much bigger than did it happen from A to B to C to D. And so we come to these passages and we ask whether or not it happened. And it is so far, but like I almost don't even want to touch it. Like it's not the question we should ask. The question we should ask is, what does this story reveal about God in my life? As we come to the stories of examples, as we come to stories like the Good Samaritan, we have no problem reading the story of the Good Samaritan and walking away going, wow, that story really spoke to me. And whether or not there was a Good Samaritan is not important to the story. And whether or not this happened exactly as we read it was not important to those authors of the Bible. But if this is a question you wrestle with, if this is one that you just can't get past, if it's something that your friends are really struggling with, I've got some resources. I'd love to share them with you. But I'm not going to do it here because actually I don't want to give it breathing room. I want to wrestle with, what is God like? What do I learn from God in this? And what I learned about myself and humanity in this. And if you want to come and do the science thing with me, let's come and do the science thing together. But here and now, first and foremost, let's work out what I learn about God from this. Which leads us to the second question as we come to the story of Noah. Why bring a flood? If you're not asking it, someone you know and love is asking that question. Why would a good God who loves what he has made bring a flood that wipes out 99% of life? How is that the actions of a good, loving, merciful God? And it's a huge question. And so far away from our series of what we're trying to wrestle with. We're trying to wrestle with ourselves and our ordinariness and see God in that. And it's a really important question. And there's going to be time one day, and we've touched on it in past places as well. But really this afternoon, I'm just going to, I want to address it and then sidestep it a little bit and say one day we'll talk about this more properly. But I think it's worth us first reading a little bit of the story that's going to help us frame some of this up. Something that really helps me as I come to wrestle with these questions, and believe me, I still am wrestling with you. If you sit there and go, this story doesn't sit very well with me, and there's a few stories in the Bible that don't sit very well with me, welcome to the club. I'd love to have coffee with you and just sit and be like, yeah, sometimes I don't get it either. That being said, what helps me? First and foremost, this passage in particular really helps because it sets out the motivations of God. And that's going to really help us understand what he was trying to achieve in this. Secondly, we also really need to understand that the other significant stories that were coming up in the area at the same time, there are almost every tribal or early nation, especially in the Asian Near East, have this story of a giant flood that either is localized to a significant area or is another global flood. This is not an uncommon story of like a mythological story. This is not unusual that Christianity would have a flood story at the start of it. One of the famous ones at the time was called the Epic of Gilgamesh. It comes out of one of the local neighboring nations of Israel and talks about two gods. One of them is called, I think it's Enlil, and they are the god of storm and seas and wind. And there they are hanging out on earth. And these rotten humans are just keeping on bringing requests to them. And they say, okay, I've heard you, but now I need to have a bit of me time. I just want to chill out for a moment. Can you just... but the humans, just everything they do is noisy and annoying. And so eventually this God goes, you know what, I'm done with this. And they go to wipe out humanity by making a huge flood. And then another God comes in and goes, oh, we've got to save a few. And they bring a remnant out of that. And the point of that story, I think, is young parents, when your children are annoying you to the point that you can't take that anymore, you're welcome to flood the entire house to get rid of them. I think that's the point of the Gilgamesh. It's what I've done in the past. It's worked very effectively. Unfortunately, for Christians, we don't have that. We don't have that story. Instead, we've got this one, and it begins like this. That the Lord saw how great, this is Genesis 6, the wickedness of the human race had become on the earth, and that every inclination of the thoughts of the human heart was only evil all the time. And so the Lord, we need to talk about this word, regretted that he had made human beings on the earth, and his heart was deeply troubled. And so the Lord said, I will wipe from the face of the earth the human race that I've created, and with them the animals, birds, and the creatures that move along the ground, for I again regret that I have made them. But Noah found favor in the eyes of the Lord. A really helpful guy in this conversation is a guy called John Walton, favorite commentator of mine, for obvious reasons. I would love to meet him one day. I assume we're brothers and we were just separated at birth. Do you know Tom means twin? This is completely aside. Tom means twin. Why else would my parents have named me Tom if I don't have a secret twin out there? And it could be now the 60, 70-year-old John Walton who writes commentaries in Genesis, but very, very similar. He helps us understand this word regretted, because it seems a really odd word when you sit and reflect on if God regrets something, if he's, and maybe in your ESV it has the word sorry that he had made them. That seems really unusual that God would be sorry about something. Because surely God would have known what was going to happen. If God didn't know what was going to happen at the start, well, what's like how good is this God at the end of it? And so what's this word sorry doing? And he does this really helpful work with this word. If you go and find this word in all other 9 places that you find this word, the word has got something to do with what they do in the stock markets and the Bank of Australia. The Federal Reserve. I think they got the idea from Genesis. You can quote me on that. As interest rates rise, the federal, I don't know. I'm speaking of finance. I don't understand. Some number goes up. Inflation goes up, and all the bank people get together, or some bank people to get together, and they chat about what are we going to do about this. We need to either make interest go up or down. And then either you're like, great or not great. And then inflation comes down, and they're like, oh, great, now we need to do the opposite of that. What they're doing there is taking account of the system, and they're looking at how the system is balanced. Is it unfairly balanced this way or this way, and what do I need to do about it? That's our word here. If you said God took an audit of what was happening on the earth, it would actually fit really, really well in terms of a good translation and terrible in any form of an English sentence. But it's a really helpful word, because what we're seeing here is God does an audit of the world, and what he sees is that the earth has become filled, which is an answer to his command in Genesis 1. He said to the humans, multiply and fill the earth. Go and do this thing. And he says it to the plants and the animals as well. And the earth now, to the point in Genesis 6, is filled with violence and bloodshed. And the Genesis 6 opens with a story about God looking on the earth full of injustice and violence, and he is moved to act in his world. And that alone should give us pause. That when God looks out and sees a world that is filled with violence, injustice, and bloodshed, he moves to act. That should give us real pause in the world that we live at the moment. Because our God, he doesn't act out of anger. It's really important in this story. At no point does he sit there and get really frustrated about the way things have outworked. He is grieved at the state of his world. It says his heart is deeply troubled. He looks out on the world. And there's this story, a few stories before this, Abel's blood is crying out from the ground because of the injustice done against him. And now from that point, the whole world has been filled with bloodshed, crying out to God, saying, will you not act on our part? Will you not come? Will you not balance the scales? And then God does, and that should give us pause to think about the state of our world and what part I have to play in that. we are going to, in a few weeks, play a game of ping pong here. And we are doing that solely because there are people in another country that you and I probably will never ever meet, caught in the depths of slavery, in utter darkness. And you and I have something to do. We have a responsibility in that. What are you going to do with the blessing and privilege that God has given to you? God blesses people that they would be a blessing. What are you going to do about it? I'm going to come and I'm going to beat Brian about 100 times in ping pong. And you're welcome to come and watch that. He thinks he's going to beat me. You mind? He intends. He's been training for a year, bless him. I've been training too. Very, very strict diet I'm on at the moment. Potato salad diet is what I'm on. You get the potato and then you fry it. It's really nice. And that's it. It's great diet. We're going to come and do ping pong. Why? Because we really care about injustice. So much so that as we brought the Constitution, the draft Constitution to the church a few months ago, where we said the way that we see ourselves celebrating, announcing, and demonstrating the kingdom of God, there's two ways that we do that out of a few. One is acts of service, and two, advocating for the marginalized. And we would invite you to come and be a part of that. In all of that, though, God's judgment is often an unsettling reflection on God's character. It can leave us with real questions. And again, if we had time, we'd do it, but it's just not in our series. But it's worth praying through. It's worth reading through. It's worth working through with yourself and with your family and with people around you. And I'd love to be a part of that if you've got questions. For now, though, we've got about 1,000 words to work through the story of Noah and the ordinary person that he is, right? Because often we would look at this story of Noah and you go, wow, this story is so ordinary. Here's the story of a guy singled out across an entire generation because he alone shows some modicum of blamelessness and righteousness to the point where God goes, you and you alone can be the person who saves. And so he builds a boat the size of a football field and a half, and then puts all the animals on it, and then goes sailing for almost a year. That happened to me a couple of years back. I'm sure you've had a very similar. It's not an ordinary story, and we have to name that now after I say that we're going to do a series about ordinary people, and then promise you that we're going to do something ordinary. Turns out, it doesn't feel very ordinary. But the hinge of the entire narrative is something that should be quite familiar to us by this point. And it's worth really, really paying attention to. And that is Noah's obedience. Who faithfully and repeatedly, without expectation, or really much time in the spotlight, Noah is just simply obedient to what God has asked for him. Allow me to demonstrate. And the way we're going to demonstrate, I need someone who can skim read, or probably a few of us who are good at skim reading. I know that Julia was a paralegal once. Weren't you? I think that's true. So you'll be great at skim reading. But I need a few others. If you could pull out Genesis 6 on your phone. There'll be some. If you're not a skim reader, don't worry. I've got something for you to do in a moment. It's called star jumps. Genesis 6. Your job, if you're a good skim reader, your job is to, starting at Genesis 6, verse 1, just skim through Genesis 6, skim through Genesis 7, and then 8, and then half of 9, right until Noah gets off the boat. Once Noah's off the boat and does his sacrifice thing, you can stop reading. What you're looking for is the first time Noah speaks in the passage. So it should be a little indent. You should have some quotation marks. It should be easy to find. Start in Genesis 6. Everyone else who's not doing that, we went to the snow last week. This is what we did, and you can have a look at this. This is quite fun. This is just photos of my children at the snow. That was us. That was at Hunter Valley Gardens, which is really nice. I would recommend. It's gone now. And then we went and they did athletics carnival, and that was quite fun as well. And so I just thought I'd put up photos of my children for a bit while they skim read. How the skim readers going? You found anything yet? Yeah, great. Thanks, Cam. What? Is that after he gets off the boat? Is that after he does the sacrifice bit? Is that in the weird story about Noah and his family and like in the vineyard? Yeah, okay. What's weird about that story? In everything is it weird about that story? What's the point of that then? The first time Noah speaks is after the entire event happens. What's the point? Had nothing to do with him. Who's the main character of the story? God is the main character of the story. I should get rid of my children so you actually listen to me. This is a list of all the things that Noah does in the story. Every time Noah's name is used and then a verb is used is up there on the list. And I apologize, it's a bit small. But here's 6:22. Noah did everything that just as God commanded him. 7 verse 5. And Noah did all that Noah commanded him. Verse 7. And Noah and his sons and his wife and his sons' wives entered the ark to escape the waters of the flood, as God had commanded Noah. Verse 13. On that very day, Noah and his sons, together with his wife and the wives of his 3 sons, entered the ark, as God had commanded Noah. 8:6. After 40 days, Noah opened a window and he made in the ark, and he sent out a raven. And then 8, 10, 12, he sends out a dove. 17 and 18, we're back into God says, come out of the ark. So Noah comes out of the ark with his sons and his wife. And then he builds an altar to the Lord. And taking some of the clean animals and birds, he sacrificed burnt offerings on it. The point of the list is this. The only actions that Noah does in the story outside of the literal and direct commands of God is he lets some birds out of the ark. That is his contribution to the story. Whatever we learn about Noah from this story, and there is stuff to learn about Noah from this story, is totally eclipsed by what we have to learn about God from this story. He is the main character of the story. He is the main character of the story. God is going to do something extraordinary because he is God. And he is going to do something extraordinary because he wants to. But God is looking for partners. And he has been from the start. Not because his partners they're gonna bring anything particularly special to the table. It's not as if God is standing there going, I really need Aaron because I'm not that funny. And so I just need Aaron. He's going to bring that joke and it's going to really set things off. And that's going to be great. Or I really need Andrew because I just need a drummer. I can't keep time. Where's a drummer? Where's Andrew? Can you see the point of the story? God doesn't need a partner, but he wants one. He wants one. I'm not a handyman. I need to say that up front. It's scary for me to invite Stephen Punch over to my house because he spends most of the time looking at the things around my house and be like, no, you did a really good job. I can see you tried really hard. Thanks, Punchy. Really appreciate that. And I'll come by and I'll help you fix it. Thanks. Great, Punch. I'm really proud of that, Punch. Yeah, no. You should be really proud of it. It's a real credit to you. Thanks, Punchy. Thanks for nothing. You would know, I'm more a gardener than I am a handyman, and I'm not a gardener, as we explored on many, many occasions. It's not my gifting. That being said, every now and then, there's a job, and I'm like, you know what, I get in Jobsland, and Jobsland is hang that picture, and here we go. I'm going to hang that picture, and into the shed I go to get every single thing that I need. But who would come with me? One of my children. Oh, Dad, can I carry the hammer for you? I've got 2 hands. I'm carrying a tape measure. I don't need you to carry the hammer, but I want you to carry the hammer. Don't I? Yeah, come on, yeah. God, come on, hold these nails as well. Quick, Mum's not looking. It'll be fine. And so in we go, and into the room we go, and we hang the picture, and it's beautifully straight. All my pictures are very, very straight. Please don't come to my house. The point being, though, is I want my children to come and do it with me. And it's not about what they bring. I'm not looking for them to do something so that then it's like, oh, yeah, this is going to be really helpful. Though sometimes, bless them, they are. It's much more about relationship. Just want to spend time with them. Just want to do something together. I don't want to achieve something. I want them to look back and go, I did that. They didn't do anything. But they walk away going, I did that because they did. They played a part with me. This is the story of the Bible. God is a God who wants to do things with his people. In fact, the story of Genesis is basically God is going to do things in spite of the people that he picks to work with. They're awful. Every single one of them in Genesis is terrible, but maybe Joseph. And he really, if we think about it, he got what was coming to him. Like, you can't do that with your brothers and sisters. I want to do the same thing with Sam. The point being, though, that God is going to do what he's going to do, but he wants to do it with you, and he wants to do it with me. And so this is what I walk away with as I think about the story of Noah. Just like Noah was not the main character in his story, I shouldn't be the main character in mine. I shouldn't be the main character of my story. And I've learned that, and I'm learning that. I'm responsible for my actions. I'm called, as we know, and Cam, you preached beautifully last week in Noah. I'm called to really carefully and considerately and intentionally work on my character and develop that. It's going to be hard, but I need to look more Christ-like, and that's not just going to happen because I just feel like doing it. You have to put work into that. And I'm responsible for that. My life, though, should point to the true main character. One of my favorite, again, I must say this all the time, but another one of my favorite verses, here's John the Baptist working in his ministry. Jesus comes on the scene, and his disciples start talking to him about Jesus, and he says this really clearly: I must decrease, and he must increase. And I think there's not much better mantra for your life than I must decrease, and he must increase. He should be the main character of my story. And when I understand the cross, and when I understand the depths to which Jesus, my Savior and Messiah, went, that I might experience life and freedom, that the sacrifice that he made for us, that we just sang about with Cam, that sacrifice should lead me to sacrifice myself, to open myself up to walking with him, to saying, God, would your heart be my heart? What you care about be what I care about. The places where you would go, would they be the place that I go? And then doing that, reorientate my whole life and values and ego and achievements, and lay it all down, because I'm not the main character in the story. Two things worth thinking about out of this. If God is going to be the main character in my story, it makes sense that I need to spend time realigning myself with his values, and that needs to happen regularly. Cam touched on this last week. It's worth going there again. There needs to be time and space that I set aside where I say, God, would you come and do the bit where you fix my eyes on what's important again, because I've taken it off it. It is so quick and easy to lose perspective in this world. It is so quick and easy. And it's a spiritual discipline to take your eyes off everything that you can see in front of you and say, God, you have been there for me in the past, and you will be there for me again. My fear is that the 21st century church isn't even aware that God particularly wants to partner with them, because we don't give him the space to ask. We fill our lives up with everything that we have to do, and all the things are important. And the space for God to speak meaningfully into my life shrinks and shrinks and shrinks until there's 2 minutes when I'm driving my car to the place I need to go next. God is going to be the main character in my story, I have to flip that. It has to be the first thing that changes. I have to flip that. To provide space that God would come and speak in my life and that I would be ready to listen. The second, and this is just one that I'm working through at the moment, it's more important to be faithful than successful. It's more important to be faithful than successful. It's more important that when God gives me a sense that I need to do something, that I step out and do it. And at the end of the day, I look back and go, I don't know what that was about. That is more important that I do it than I ask all the questions trying to make sure that it was God. We had that journey, and we should tell that. We tell it at Table Talk quite a lot. And one day we'll tell you the story about how we ended up here. And it started with us doing something that we were convinced that we were supposed to do. And at the end of it, we sat there and went, oh my goodness, that was all. Did we hear wrong? That felt like you failed us, God. But it was more important that we were faithful in that moment than we were successful. We just spent, 6-8 weeks together as a church community, inviting people to participate and come and join us at Alpha. At the end of the day, we're not running Alpha at the moment. We didn't have enough people, we didn't have the right people, and it just all fell apart. But it's more important that we are faithful to what God has called us to do than we are successful. I don't know what God did that. I don't know why we did that. I've got a sense. Are we going to do it again? I really feel like that was the right thing to do, and I think it's the right thing to do again. And we're going to look to do that as a team and as a church again, to invite people to come and join us in wrestling with the real questions of life. But at the end of the day, or at the moment, what have we gained and achieved out of it? Nothing. But we were faithful. And together as a church, and know many of you went and asked someone whether they would consider it. Or even just ask that question of ourselves, would I go and ask that person? And what does that look like? And how do I do that? And God give me an opportunity to do that. That's growth. And it led to me Friday looking and just feeling, I had a feeling. I just went, God said, I don't know. I sat there and went, I think I need to call this person. And I sat there and went, and all the questions came to mind. Yeah, I don't know. Was that God? Was that not? I don't know. And I almost didn't. I almost did. Then I did. And they answered the phone. And it was absolutely what God had for me. It is more important to be faithful to that little nudge, that little, I want you to go and talk to that person. I want you to reach out to that person. I want you to go and bake this. I want you to cook. I want whatever it is. And then leave the result of that up to God. That is not in your hands. Your role in this world is to water. Water the plants. And let God do the growing. And that is letting Him be the main character. I think it's worth us sharing communion together. And taking a moment of real reflection. God, who is the main character in my life? What is my time? How have I set my time and my priorities up? What does that say about who is the priority in my life? And what are you calling me to do? To step into? Who is the person you've asked me to reach out to? And then, as you've done that, come and join us as we break bread and give thanks to the one who gave everything for you and for me. Let's pray, shall we? God, we just ask your Spirit, would it just come and rest on us now? And if you're comfortable, just open your hands up to Him. Just again, it's a physical sign of what you're trying to do on the inside. To say, God, would you come and speak to me? Holy Spirit, you are with us now. In a world, God, that tells us to look after me, myself, and I, it's often so hard to keep our eyes fixed on you. For the times where we have failed, we are sorry. The times that our calendar is out of whack with our priorities, we are sorry. The times where you have called us and we have rationalized why it couldn't have been you. We are sorry. Jesus, come and be the center again. That our lives would point to you. That we would be living sacrifices for your kingdom. That we would be a blessing to those who are around us. We take this moment, God, just to open our hearts. Would you speak to us? And would you draw us to you again? Jesus, this meal gives us courage because you did this first. And in that garden, as you wrestle with who was the main character in your life, you said, not my will, but yours be done. And so as we come and break this bread, share in this cup, may your will be done. And may your kingdom come. Amen. Take your time if you need to. Come and share as you're ready.